Damaged goods Chris Cuomo is poised for a massive pay cut in his new TV anchor gig. So Chris Cuomo is poised to take a massive pay cut as he joins News Nation, a fledgling cable TV channel with a tiny audience, the Post has learned. Cuomo, who was reportedly banking $6 million a year for his Cuomo primetime show on CNN before he was fired last year, will likely earn just a fraction of that. Insiders speculate the figure could be around 1 million as he starts his new gig at News Nation this fall, sources told the Post. Now the thing that I don't even understand, right? Who in their right mind thinks that paying this guy $1 million a year is a good idea? Like, why does News Nation, whatever news station that is, thinks that this is the right investment? Like, you got to keep in mind, $1 million a year is still a lot of money. Now, yeah, it's a lot less than what he was making beforehand, but oh my god. Like, what does he bring to the table to where you could justify spending $1 million for his salary? Because you got to keep in mind, right? If this is going to be like another like TV news channel gig sort of thing, right? Is he able to bring in the views needed to justify that seven-figure paycheck? Probably not. Especially if this is a small channel. Probably not. So I don't think he had a lot of leverage, said one source. Referring to Coleman's contract, he's damaged goods. Now here's the thing. It makes sense that he would get paid less than what he was making beforehand for so many different reasons. Different location, he got fired, etc., etc. But also, $1 million is still kind of too much. So the plugged in media source speculated that Kuma wasn't getting any offers from any of the big networks, and that the longer he wasn't on TV, the more irrelevant he was becoming. News Nation declined to comment on Cuomo's compensation. And so here's the thing, right? This is actually a very good thing to understand, right? Because Cuomo didn't really have like a really, really strong fan base, right? That like adored him and loved him. The more he's out of the limelight, the more people are going to basically just completely forget about him. Because you got to keep in mind, Cuomo is not someone like a Joe Rogan, where Joe Rogan, if he wanted to, he could probably take a year off of his podcast and still remain number one podcast in the world. Why? All of his content mostly is very evergreen, unlike Chris Cuomo, which is purely news based. Also, Joe Rogan is just a much more likable individual compared to Cuomo, right? And all the audience members of his like him for him, right? Unlike everybody that was like watching Chris Cuomo, they were forced to watch Chris Cuomo, right? So Cuomo revealed his comeback bid on Dan Abrams' News Nation show Tuesday night. The news marked the first time Cuomo has appeared on TV since being canned from CNN last year over his role in advising his older brother, then New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. I had decided that I can't go back to what people see as the big game, Cuomo told Abrams last night. I don't think I can make a difference there. I think we need insurgent media. I think we need outlets that aren't fringed and just trying to fill their pockets. Which I think is kind of hilarious that he's saying this because, like, uh, like the problem that I have with a lot of these, like, opinion based news hosts on big TV is a lot of them are just all hypocrites and just lie through their teeth so much. But a second source echoed that Como appeared to be out of options and that the anchor's fall from grace has landed him on the young network that is keeping costs low as it expands. Sources said, the thing is, they should have paid him even less. They should have paid him maybe 100 grand per year. Maybe. So, adding insult to injury, Coleman's new job doesn't include a clothing allowance or paid for flights from his house in the Hamptons to the studio like his old job had, according to sources close to the situation. And that's despite the fact that Coleman would be getting a brand new studio in the old WPIX headquarters on 220 East 42nd Street. A rep from News Nation confirmed that the company has been in the process of renovating several studios and that is earmarked as space for Coleman's new show. A date for the fall debut hasn't yet been announced. While the rep would not reveal Coleman's time slot, she also confirmed that the anchor has already hired Alexandra Dusty Cohen, a former producer on The View, as his executive producer. The network owned by Chicago-based Nexstar Media Group is building a roster of anchors like Abrams, who had stints at NBC and ABC News, and former CNN anchor Ashley Banfield. And it recently tapped Michael Korn, the former Good Morning America producer, who was embroiled in a sexual harassment suit that was recently dropped as president of news programming. So Nexstar rebranded WGN America last year as News Nation with the goal of launching a fact-based, unbiased network that delivers news 24 hours a day by next year. Look, if they're able to actually do what they claim that they're trying to do, good for them. But I find it to be really sad that they're trying to create a fact based, unbiased network after you hire an anchor that lied constantly and also was definitely very biased. So, how much can anyone really trust that you're going to actually be doing what you say you're going to be doing? Currently, it has a mix of news and reruns that are averaging around 85,000 total viewers a day. And this is another thing that like really shocks me, right? Like put this into perspective, right? Their channel, right? This News Nation channel, whatever, right? Network gets around 85,000 total viewers a day. Okay? Do you realize how bad that actually is in terms of like viewership? Like to put it into perspective, a YouTuber named Sniper Wolf gets millions of views every single day from one channel. Okay? And yet, this news network with a massive budget, massive team, can barely pull in above an average of 85,000 total viewers? Does that make sense? That's kind of crazy. So, News Nation's highest rated show is cop drama Blue Bloods, which averages around 350,000 total viewers an episode, while the primetime slate pulls in an average of 50,000 viewers nightly. So last week, Abrams' 9 p.m. show averaged around 54,000 viewers, while Banfield's 10 p.m. show brought in just 33,000. The ratings are less than local news, a source said. They're horrendous. Added another, noting that Korn got a bargain in Chris Como. If Como doubles the ratings to 100,000, the higher will be worth it, the source concluded. So here's the thing: there must be so much money behind TV networking, which is just shocking to me, because you have random YouTubers, right, and random people with a podcast on their phone getting more daily listeners or viewership than this whole network combined per day. Like, it's crazy. Still, an audience of 100,000 is a fraction of what Como used to pull. His 9 p.m. show on CNN nabbed nearly 2 million total viewers in 2020 and around 1 million total viewers on average in this last year. Even when Como's ratings began to tumble after the resignation of his brother, who was accused of the sexual harassment by multiple women, he still pulled in nearly 700,000 total viewers. Nevertheless, for Como, it's not necessarily all about dollars and cents in the end, according to one source. Chris has a huge ego, the source added. He loves to hear himself talk. And the former CNN star is still suing his old network for a staggering 125 million in damages after he was fired for his own sexual harassment scandal and allegedly using his press connections to aid the defense of his embattled older brother. So let's actually check out some of the comments. Either way, I think this is honestly a bad monetary investment for the company. This is not a pay cut. He's currently making $0, so any job is an improvement. Let's see. He isn't worth a plugged nickel. The slug doesn't deserve a pay scale of $1 million. The thing is, like, I still find it crazy that they have $1 million to pay him as a paycheck, right? Now, here's the thing. If I was him, after dealing with everything that he was dealing with, financially speaking, what I would do if I was paid this amount of money, I would manage my money as if I was only making $100,000 a year. And the reason for that is because the future is really shaky in my situation, right? If I had just basically got fired, then just got hired at like a last resort company, I'm going to do my best in that company, try to make as much money as possible, but I'm still going to live as if I'm only making $100,000. Meaning that after basically the first year of working for this company, I still got 11 more years basically of surviving just from that 1 year paycheck, right? Now, obviously, that is like a very broad statement, right? And not exactly truly accurate because you got to pay taxes and all that kind of stuff, right? But if your future is extremely uncertain, you should try to manage your money as if you were making much, much less, right? Because it just keeps you in a much healthier financial situation to where you don't really got to worry about things too much. Exactly. Maybe take some belt tightening, but I think he will survive on $1 million a year. Like the majority of the human population will never make $1 million a year. Like just keep that in mind, right? $1 million a year, right? If you have like even a somewhat okay life expectancy, and you maybe only like work 20, 25 years, look, you could easily end up having like 40, 50, 60, maybe even $80 million by the time that you retire or die, right? Because if you were to invest that money and it compounded and it basically doubled every 10 years, he'd be so filthy rich. And the thing is, what I don't understand is why doesn't he just make his own show? Right? He's probably made enough money to literally just make his own show with no cost to himself, really. I mean, he could just create his own podcast or something. I never heard of News Nation before now. Is it on cable or internet only, or do you need an antenna? Perhaps it's on shortwave only, so low budget they must do their broadcasting with iPhones. Vaguely sounds like the old porno cable channels on basic cable in Manhattan in the 1990s. But wow, what a fall. Absolutely no one wanted this guy. Maybe this is all a privately funded plan to slowly try to rehab older brother Andrew Cuomo. I wouldn't be surprised if Andrew Cuomo were using his old campaign account to fund this. A long, boring, paid for infomercial. Maybe they'll run ads asking for contributions for Andrew. Never underestimate the sinister older brother. He'll never go away. News Nation made a huge mistake. They make the claim their site is non biased. They just blew that up. Dan Abrams and Chris Como. He's probably paying them. And there's an excellent reason to tune out News Nation. So that's like $20,000 per audience member. Like, yeah, think about that. Like, that's a disgusting amount of money that they're paying him. Do they really think he's going to get an audience? This News Nation station is filling its ranks with liberal rejects. CNN too. Honest to God, so much for News Nation's credibility as an unbiased news source. Okay, so a million, bah ha ha ha. That would mean they'd pay him 100K each for the 10 people who'll watch him in the next 12 months. He's probably paying News Nation and blowing the bus. Look, here's the thing. I mean, they probably are actually paying him the $1 million, probably, maybe even more than that. And the reality is, like, I think a lot of people, me included, find it really hard to understand the kind of money that is behind some of these TV networks, behind the advertising money. Because this is the thing, big money, big advertiser money is behind these cable TV shows, right? I remember watching a video with a guy who did produce TV shows or sold TV shows to these big networks. And if some of these shows would get like a 50,000 to 100,000 uh, recurring audience per episode, basically, especially in the prime time, some of these shows could generate like nine figures in just advertisement dollars, right? And he would end up getting like a kickback from that. So he could be basically like selling or like basically licensing the show to them for like 10, 20 million plus like a kickback, right? So the kind of money behind some of these networks, behind some of these like network TV shows, these cable TV shows are massive, right? Like a TV show on like, cable TV, whatever, that's only getting like 40, 50,000 viewers every episode that they do, might be bringing in nine figures a year, right? Like it's a crazy amount of money, and it's something like really hard to understand because when you look at like people on YouTube and stuff getting the same amount of views, they might make like 100 grand by the end of the year, if that, maybe, right? But the same amount of views on like cable network television could be nine figures. Like, it's absolutely insane. Like, here's the thing: if, for example, Mr. Beast had his content on cable television, where like he was licensing it to them, the sheer amount of money that he would be making would be in the billions, like billions of dollars. And that's like no joke. Like the kind of money, like the big advertising money, is in the laziest form of content, which is cable television, right? Like it's just unbelievably crazy.